Hello, students. Welcome to week 4 of Sci 1010 General Psychology. In this week, we will talk about the two major topics in the history of psychology, so-called motivation and emotion. Also, the research method has been changed during the last century, from the beginning of the 20th century until now. Motivation, especially motivation, and after that, emotion, were two of the most important topics for academic research on it in psychology as a science. At first, we want to have some good learning outcomes for different parts of this chapter. Explain instinct approaches to motivation, explain drive reduction approaches to motivation, explain arousal approaches to motivation, explain incentive approaches to motivation, explain cognitive approaches to motivation, explain need-based approaches to motivation, and apply the different approaches to motivation. So what is motivation? For everything you want to use in your job, in your academic course, in your daily life, you should have two types of definition. At first, conceptual definition. Secondly, operational definition. Conceptual definition is about the defining of the major concepts, the roots of that topic you want to have a good definition about it. But in practice, you should change those concepts to practical course, to practical plan, to practice for daily life. It is called operational definition. For example, when we say the ability to know the secrets, to find the secrets, to find the answers, this ability is called intelligence in some definitions. But if it is conceptual definition of intelligence. But if you want to provide an operational definition about the intelligence, you should know about the psychometrics and how to assessment the different aspects of intelligence in your daily life or in the area you want to use intelligence. So-called IQ tests, for example. IQ tests are they are the major parts of assessment of gathering information, data collection about the aspects of daily life, views, daily life, applications of intelligence. Again, here we want to talk about motivation. What is motivation? The factors that direct and energize the behavior of human and other organisms. Honestly, in your book has talked about organisms, other organisms. But now, in these types of organism, also the basic approaches are general between different organisms, including human being also. But the higher levels of approaches to motivation, we can find them only on the level of humanity. Not even sometimes we cannot find them even in other mammals, only in human being. But it is the highest level. It is called cortical higher cortical functioning. The functions related to the different and specific part of your cortex, brain cortex, which is only exclusive for you as a human being, even for you. Uh, Other mammals near us, closest to us, like chimpanzees, like gorillas, like baboons, they don't have these types of higher cortical functions. But generally, we can find two components, two factors in defining motivation. Everything give you a direction, everything make you a goal-directed person, everything direct your behavior to a specific goal. It is not also motivation, it is goal setting. Honestly, when you are talking about motivation in yourself and in other people, the first word associated to your mind is not direction. It is energize, it is force, it is power, it is have a good passion or have a good enthusiasm about the direction you want to go. So when people say to us, you are so motivated, it means that you have a good energy, you have a good passion, high level of energy and passion to achieve your goals. It is the ordinary definition between general population about motivation. But scientifically, if you want to have motivation and if you want to find motivation in other people, you should consider two factors. Besides energy, at first you should find direction, goal direction, going to specific points in your life. So these two factors, direction and force and energy, is very important to have a good and proper and applicable and concrete and operational definition of motivation. We have six general approaches to motivation. Also, it is acronyms from myself. It is I then C. I then C, I for instinct, D for drive reduction, A for arousal, N for need, C for cognitive, and I for incentive. If you want to have a good memory about the words, you should have some acronym about the, for example, such a long phrase like these six approaches to motivation. It is I dance or I dance I. I will dance with me. I dance I. So you see here, instinct approaches to motivation, drive reduction approaches to motivation, arousal approaches to motivation, incentive approaches to motivation, cognitive approaches to motivation, and need-based approaches to motivation. Let's start with the basic approach to motivation that we can find it also in other mammals, other animals. You can see here again with the more detail about the need-based motivation approaches to motivation, including two major approaches. One, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and two, self-regulation theory that we will talk about both of them in details. First, instinct approach or born to be motivated. At first, we should have a good definition of instinct. What is instinct? Inborn patterns of behavior that are biologically determined rather than learned, essential to survival. I have made it in there. I have showed to you in red color the keywords. You see that instinct, at first it is inborn. When something is inborn, it is mean that there is no necessary to learn it. There is no necessary to observational learning or conditional learning or other types of learning. It is inborn. And why it is inborn? Because it is more important. It is very essential, very crucial, very vital for your survival. There is no time to learn something which is so vital for your survival. Before that, as a newborn, you will die. So at the first moments, at the first years, even sometimes, it is related to the adjective, to the component, to the problem that you are going to solve it or you are going to face it. It is related to that topic sometimes for the first years. You should have some skills for maintaining your survival. Sometimes these skills are called reflexes. Reflexes, for example, crying. From the first moments of coming to this world, you know how to cry and you haven't learned it anytime. Or grasping, or watching, or have some reactions in facial expression. These are reflexes. But we are not talking about only reflexes. We are talking about incentives. Instincts at first are inborn, and they are patterns of behavior. They are pattern, a repeatable model for having some behavior that are biologically determined. We said that, we talk about it. You cannot learn your instinct, not you, not other animals, rather than learn, essential to survival. So we have inborn behavior, biologically, and survival. When you are talking about the biological aspects of your life, you are talking about your survival. Because of that, the title said born to be motivated. It means that in some aspects of our life, we are born to be motivated. We are here to be motivated. We are here to have some direction and energy for do something. Why? Because those actions, those behavior, those patterns of behavior that we are doing is related to our survival. Because of maintaining our survival, we should have some before starting learning from the environment around us biologically. With no learning, only knowing, it is instinct. Instinct is something that you know, but you haven't learned it. It is by your biological components of your body, of your mind, everything that you are as a human being. So instinct provide energy that guides behavior. In, instead of saying direction, we say guide. Guide and energy, direction and energize. The major definition of motivation. Instinct provides energy that guides behavior. Two types of behaviors, two types of patterns of behaviors that sometimes it seems that they are not instinctual, sexual behavior and exploratory behavior. Why sexual behavior is very important for the survival. Also, it is not related to think until the and up to now with this fund of knowledge, with the science of sexology, we know that it is not related to our survival as a person, but it is related to the survival of our species. Sexual behavior may be a response to an instinct to reproduce. So sexual behavior is not instinctual. But you have an instinct to reproduce. Why? Because of survival, not survival of yourself, survival of your species. So you can see here that sometimes we can find some patterns of reactions, not actions, some patterns of response, not stimuli, some actions of interacting with the instincts. We can see only the outcome of that interaction, not the basic and root instinct. For example, here it says that sexual behavior is not an instinct, it is a response to your instinct to reproduce yourself for the survival of your species. Other behavior is exploratory behavior, may be motivated by an instinct to examine one's territory. You know, territory, especially in the higher level of mammals, monkeys, baboons, human being, us, territory is very important. Territory is one part of your survival. If you can read a very simple book about the evolutionary of mind, why we have mind, it's an evolutionary question. Everything you have in your body, in your brain, in the nature, it is the outcome of an evolutionary course. And it is going on until the next times, until the next millenniums, not the next decades, not about the next centuries. We are talking about the next millenniums. Exploratory says that we need our territory for survival. So our instinct is instinct for examining one's territory. Where is my territory? Where is your territory? Where is my home? Where is your home? Doesn't have any overlap on each other. It is the independent, not dependent. It is my geographical territory, mind territory, action territory, behavioral territory. But very simple speaking, we can say about only geographical territory. You have an instinct to examine your or other people's territory. It's very important for your survival as a man. So, what is the reaction? What is the response to this instinct to examine one's territory? It is called exploratory behavior. So, until now, we have two types of examples. We have two examples about the behaviors or patterns of behavior which is not directly related to instinct. These behaviors are reactions, responses to instincts. One, sexual behavior are responses to instinct of reproduction, and two, exploratory behaviors, which are responses to instinct of examines one's territory. Discussion. We have a question because it is the basic and the first approach to motivation, instinct approach. Much of the variety and complexity of human behavior is learned and thus cannot be seen as instinctual. It's a very good question and very good critics about this approach. That yes, I, like other animals, like other mammals, have a very vast area of instinct. Yes. But those instincts are only for my survival. And much of my socialization process, much of my parenting style, employing and working and lovemaking and not sexual behaviors, but interpersonal romantic relationships can include some aspects of sexual behavior also, and other, for example, power, democracy, social society, weapons, everything that you can find in me and in you as human beings. A lot of details, a lot of aspects are not related to instinct. They are not inborn. Even they are not to my basic survival. To basic, yes, it is related to my social survival, to my national survival, to my cultural survival, to my racial survival. It is not basic. When you say you are talking about the basic survival, you are talking about the elements that without them you will die. It is the basic components of your survival. For example, hunger. For example, thirst. For example, sex and sleep. These are the basic we talk about. Other components of our social life, our cultural life, of our interpersonal life is not related to instinct. So because of that, we have many other approaches to motivation. The second one is drive reduction approaches, satisfying our needs. It is very interesting that you can find the word need from now until the end of different approaches to motivation. For example, again in Maslow, again here, and self-regulation theory, it seems that also in instinctual approaches to motivation, you can find needs. Why? Because you can be survived if you can meet your needs. And some of these needs are very basic, so-called basic needs or physiological needs. We will talk about it in the next PowerPoint slides on Maslow hierarchies of needs. The basic level, the basic stage is physiological needs or basic needs. So deeply thinking, if you want to look at your motivation so profound, you can find only one word: need. The energy and the direction provided by motivation is because of meeting your needs. Some of your needs are very basic. So the tools, the motivational tools that you or your nature use to meet those needs, it is very instinctual because they are survival based. They are so important for maintaining your survival. They are vital needs. After that, for other types of needs, you need some different approaches, different tools, different path to meet your needs. They are not basic, they are not survival, yes, but they are your needs. Because of that, the second part after instinct, we go to work with our drives. What is drive? It is something like instinct. Why we say other animals have instincts, but human being has also, besides instinct, we have drives. Lacking a basic, what is drive? Motivational tension or arousal that energizes behavior to fulfill a need. Pay attention. Motivational tension or arousal. You can find in any type of drive in yourself some types of tension or arousal that energizes. There's some levels of energy in your tensions. Behavior to fulfill a need, not necessarily a biological, survival based, or vital need, to fulfill a need. This approach says that lacking a basic biological need, such as water, produces a drive, such as thirst, to obtain that need. So it is something like that instinct approaches. No, the difference is that you have no control on your instincts like other animals. So if we want to talk about this scientifically, human beings don't have any type of instinct because we can have some levels of control on our instinct. For example, fasting. Fasting for your lab test. Fasting sometimes as a religious ceremony. Yes, you have the instinct of hunger. You need food. You need to food, an instinct of hunger. You need to water, an instinct of thirst. But you can have some level. You cannot delete your need to water, your need to food. You cannot delete it. But you can have some managerial control. You can manage, you can handle your thirst or your hunger. It is called drive. But it has a tension. It has a type sometimes of arousal, could produce some levels of tension or arousal in your body, in your mind, for doing something, for meeting that needs. It is called drive. So lacking a basic biological needs. At first, drives are coming from lacking a basic biological needs. For example, water produces a drive to obtain that need. We have lacking, need, drive, obtain. In this approach, we have two types of drives: primary drives and secondary drives. What is primary drive? The basic drives related to biological needs of the body or of the species as a whole. Sometimes it is only for you, for your body. Sometimes your drive is a need for your species as a whole, such as hunger, thirst, sleep, and sex. We usually try to satisfy a primary drive by reducing the need underlying it. How can you meet your, how can you satisfy your primary drive? By meeting the primary needs, the need underlying that drive. So it is your need, it is your drive. Need to water, thirst as a drive. Need to food, hunger as a drive. Need to survival, sex as a drive. Because of that, in this model, we don't consider any type of instinct for specific species of human being, which is called Homo sapiens. We are Homo sapiens or Homo sapiens. When your drives are from your basic needs, lack of basic biological needs, lack of basic biological ways to meet your needs, it is drive, primary drive. And after that, it is secondary drive. Prior experience and learning bring about it. It is not about your biological needs. It is not about your inborn needs, about your inborn drive. It is about your previous experiences. Because of your previous experience, because of your learned or perceived features of your life, behavior fulfills no obvious biological need, like the achievement need. Achievement need is a drive in human beings, but it is not related to your nature, to your biological needs. So we have two types of drive. Drive is attention or arousal to create some directive and energizing action or behavior. It is motivation. Every time you hear the word motivation, you should search, you should look for energy and direction. It is drive. If your drive is about meeting your basic needs, your biological needs, it is called primary drive. But our needs as a social being is not only about our basic needs, especially in developed countries. You can find many people that don't have any type of problem about the basic needs, about the hunger, about the food. It is solved for them to have good food, good water, healthy water, good sex, and shelter and other things. So they are going to the next level of needs that we will talk about it. In this approach, all those next levels of needs are called secondary needs. Secondary needs are the needs, secondary drives are the needs that you have because of your previous learning, previous experiences bring about needs that doesn't fulfill no absolute obvious biological needs. The body's tendency, we in this approach, we want to talk about the concepts of the so-called homeostasis. Homeostasis is the body's tendency to maintain a steady internal state underlies primary drives. So homeostasis that it means that your body instinctually, naturally, without any intervention, any intentional intervention, wants to have a good balance between different aspects, different components of its organizing components. For example, blood, your heart, your lung, your nervous system, your chemicals of your body, especially we are talking about the chemicals of your body. Naturally, your body has a tendency to maintain a steady internal state. It is internal state about your chemicals, about your organs, between your chemicals and between your organs, and steady, not fluctuating, steady. The same level which is important for our survival. This tendency in our body is called homeostasis. Because of homeostasis, we have some drive. Homeostasis says now it is the time of hunger because the balance between different food components is coming to imbalance. Yes, new food, new water, new oxygen, and new other things. Using feedback loops, the tools that can used by your body for creating homeostasis is something like other intelligent approaches. You can find in intelligent tools, always you can find some types of feedback loops. For example, in mathematical algorithm used in computer science, always there is a feedback loop. If the answer is yes, go to the next step. If the answer is no, going in feedback loop, negative feedback loop, the previous last step, and see what is wrong and correct it and go again to the next step. It is called feedback loop. Using feedback loops, homeostasis brings deviations in body functioning back to an optimal state, similar to the way of thermostat and furnace work in home heating system to maintain a steady temperature. It is something your thermostat or a furnace that you use in your heating system in your home. Based on that, for example, you said, okay, this is hold degree 45, 7, every degree you want to have always in your home. You define it for your heating system in your home. And by using thermostat or furnace, those tools, your furnace or your, for example, furnace for cooking or the thermostat in your home for your heating system, They have sometimes have feedback loops. By having some feedback about the present state and desired state, they can change some components. It is something like your body. In homeostasis, we have some feedback loops gathering information about the different components of our body and going to the state of balance in your body. It is called homeostasis. Many fundamental needs, including needs for food, water, stable body temperature, and sleep, operate via homeostasis. You sleep because of homeostasis. You eat because of your homeostasis. You drink because of your homeostasis. Why? Because your body wants to maintain you in a relatively stable situation, which is called homeostasis. You see that understanding what motivates people can have a huge impact on how we interact. Gradually, we are entering the discussion of motivation in the organizations, in the shaping behavior in other people, as a manager, as a psychologist, as a coach, as a mentor, as a leader. One of the greatest parts you should work on it is how to use your knowledge in a practical environment to create some desirable qualities in yourself or in your organization or in your environment. At first, you should know and you should understand the motivational factors of other people. As for example, if they are your partner, they are your parents, they are your employees, they are your co-workers, or no, interpersonal, or in your society. Knowing and understanding and have the ability to analyze the motivational factors say to you that what impact factors you can find to have some good, not manipulation, some good ways to guide them for the best direction and best energy level. It is very important. All of us has some good points for direction and energy. It is called strength-based, character-based strength. Our strengths that which are based on our character. Okay, because of that, when you find your good strengths, your character-based strengths, okay, it is very easy for you to work with it and on it. Why? Because it is very familiar with your mind, with your body. It is called sometimes signature strength. The strength that everybody, when look at it, say, yes. It is, for example, Mikey, it is Michael, for example, signature strength. Whenever I look at this strength, I look at this symbol, I remember Mikey. Wow, for example, that person was very smart. Every time I see, for example, somebody's playing chess, I say, why? Somebody like Mikey. It is signature strengths. Please go to internet and study about this word, this phrase, signature strengths and character strengths and virtues. Because of that, finding and understanding what motivate peoples in general population, we have some general motivators and specific for each of them. Specific for this one, specific for that lady, specific for this gentleman. What are the impacting factors? What are the motivating factors that have a huge impact on their behavior and on we on our interaction? It is sometimes like talking in a different language. I'm a Persian. If you want to have a very good conversation with me, you should know Farsi language so good. You may be, for example, a Hispanic man or woman. If I want to have a good interaction, deep interaction, intimate interaction, friendly interaction, impressive interaction, I should know your language. It is my duty, not your duty. Motivating, knowing, and understanding the motivational factors for each of us. It is something like talking in one language or If I want to know yourself, to understand yourself, I at least have a good hearing skills. It is something like motivation. Because of that, while some drives are fairly obvious as primary or secondary, others can be more complicated. You see different pictures here. For example, in shopping, in clothing, in eating, you see that it is not so simple, something like we can categorize them in only two level, primary and secondary drives. The next approach to motivation is a arousal approach to motivation beyond drive reduction. At first, we say you are motivated by your instinct. Second part, we say you are motivated because of reducing your tension, your pressure, your drive. Now we are talking about something behind your drive reduction. We are talking about arousal. We try to maintain certain levels of stimulation and activity, increasing or reducing them as necessary. We talk about the certain level of homeostasis, certain level of balance between different components of our body, which was called homeostasis. Now we are talking about certain level of stimulation activity. Homeostasis talking about your internal components. Arousal approaches to motivation are talking about external level of activity, level of stimulation. People very widely in the optimal level of arousal they seek out, with some people looking for especially high levels of arousal. For example, people who participate in daredevil sports, high-stake gamblers, and criminals who pull off high-risk robberies. You see, we have two parts: a balance, a minimum level of balance between the components, internal components, a minimum level of balance between the external arousal. Sometimes, especially in the outside part, the inside, we have some drives. It is very automatic. It is not on your. It is not so intentional to work with your drives. Drives are very biological, have biological basis, and do it by itself and by its biological systems. But external parts, the need for a specific level of activity or stimulation, some part is on your hand to control it, to manage it, to handle it, to arrange it. Also, basically is on your character, yes, on your personality, basically. But nothing is only basics. We have other parts of a tree, not only about the roots. Roots are important. But when you call something tree, it is not only roots. It is other part, body of the tree, and for example, branches and other parts of a tree. It is not one major, basic, crucial, primary part is about the roots. It is something like our behavior. We need a minimum level of activity or stimulation in our life, external, because of social life, because of sense of vitality, because of to be productive. Some of us, because of many different causes, need more level of higher level of activity, which we have some examples here. For example, robbers or gamblers or other people. So what is my motivator? My need to have a higher energy, to have a higher direction, to have a minimum or maximum, or there is no maximum, the minimum level of activity of stimulation, it creates some types of motivation in me. The next one is incentive. So very basic part was instinct. Humanistic approach to instinct, but inner part was drive. Humanistic of balance, but not only about the inner parts, balance between the outside and external parts of our behavior is called arousal. Now we are talking about the external motivators, something outside of self, of ourselves, that creates some levels of direction and energy in ourselves. We are going completely to outside of ourselves. It is called incentive or motivations pull. It is pushing from inside and pulling from outside. It is motivations pull. Incentive approaches. Motivation stems from the desire to obtain valued external goals or incentives. I should survive. Because of that, I have instinct. I should survive socially, but I have some needs because of my previous life and previous experiences in my life. In addition to basic needs to stay alive, I need to be alive socially. It is called secondary drive. It is drive. And after that, I need to have some minimum level of action, of arousal, of activity stimulation in my society. It is called arousal. And now the society, my environment, talk to me about it is very, very objective. You can find it from this level to the next levels, you can find it in your organization. You cannot use honestly your instinct or drive reduction, some part of arousal. These are the basic parts. But the next three parts is specifically for your socialization, for your society, community, for your organization, as a leader, as a manager, you can use these last three approaches. Number one, which is besides the plus, before three parts, it is number four. It is about incentives, valued external goals. They are external. They are my goal, an external goal, not internal goal. Drive and instinct are internal goal. And it is valuable for me. Motivation stems from desire to obtain, to capture that goals, to capture that values external goals. In this view, the desirable properties of external stimuli, whether grades, money, affection, food, or sex, account for a person's motivation. Desirable properties. I see, wow, such a good car, such a beautiful lady, such a good grades in university, such delicious food, and desirable properties of value, external goals, which are called incentives. I'm here, and this is incentive. Attractive. Because of that, it's a motivations pool. These incentives are pulling me toward themselves. Good money, good car, good prestige, good power, good wealth, good health, and other things. External valued goals, which are called incentives. Many psychologists believe that the internal drives proposed by drive reduction theory work in a tandem with the external drive incentives of incentive theory to push and pull behavior respectively. Drive reduction create push and incentives create pull. Push and pull, push and pull. Internal life, external life, basic needs and social needs, higher needs. The internal drives in by push of drive reduction theory, and the external incentive by the pull of incentive theory. Arousal approach is something between these, something more than drive reduction theory and something less than incentive approaches to motivation. Cognitive approaches, honestly, about the motivation when we are talking about energy and about um, direction. Basically, we are talking about your thinking, mental syntax, your rational or irrational beliefs. We are talking about your mindset. Cognitive approaches to motivation. Motivation is the product of cognitions, thoughts, expectations, and goals. and intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic equals internal to you, motivate by enjoyment of the activity rather than by any concrete reward. We don't need any type, we don't need. You may probably receive some external rewards because of your actions with the intrinsic motivators, but it is not necessary. When it is intrinsic motivator or intrinsic motivation, you don't need any external rewards. Sometimes you have, sometimes you don't have. It is not necessary. It's good to be or good to have, but it is not necessary. So the major motivator, the major energizer, the major direction or major guide in intrinsic motivation is your enjoyment, your pleasure. Because of this, in theory of Freud, it says that id, the childish part, the basic parts of your personality, which is called id, works based on your pleasure, principle of pleasure. The second part, in contrast with intrinsic motivation, is extrinsic motivation. Extrinsic is meant external to you, doing something for a concrete reward, for an objective reward, for a measurable reward, for an external reward, for an extrinsic reward. In some cases, providing rewards, when we are talking about extrinsic motivation, we are talking about incentive approaches to motivation. When you are talking about your pleasure or intrinsic approaches to motivation, we are talking about at least drive reduction motivation, or sometimes arousal approaches to motivation. In some cases, providing reward for desirable behavior, thereby increasing extrinsic motivation, actually may decrease intrinsic motivation. It is very important in parenting. If you train your child only for extrinsic motivation, after some years, after some levels of social prestige, he or she will feel that it is not valuable. I'm always here to give and receive some rewards from external, nothing from internal. External is effective, is good, creates power, creates social credit or prestige for yourself, creates satisfaction for you, but not create any type of internal satisfaction, not gratitude, and also not gratification, both of them. There is no thanksgiving, there is no gratitude in only having external rewards. Say, thank you, but I feel alone, there's no enjoyment, there is no satisfaction, there is no gratification. Because of that, it is very, very important and very, very dangerous, hazardous to have only extrinsic motivation. You are always a person under other people's hands. You will be an approval seeker. You will be an attention seeker. And you will lose and waste your time and life only in the way of gaining acceptance and approval from other people. How do you identify your own motivation? We have a good example here, Lady Gaga. Intrinsic and extrinsic motivation are not always separating things. Lady Gaga is well known for a genuine love of performing an outrageous behavior, intrinsic motivation. However, she is also well compensated for performing, extrinsic motivation. At one part, yes, she has good intrinsic motivation because of pleasure, because of uh, performing and acting and dancing is one of her greatest signature strengths. But in the other hand, she will receive a good money. She will earn a lot of money. It is extrinsic motivation. So you can identify and have some separation between them. The last part is about human needs. We are talking about need-based theory of approaches to motivation. Human needs. Maslow hierarchy of needs says ordering needs, motivational needs based on an order. It is hierarchy. Motivational needs are in a hierarchy. Primary needs must be met before higher order needs can be satisfied. It is hierarchy. We have 5 stages here. If you want and if you are eligible to go to the next or a higher stage, at first all the needs in previous stages should be met. Before that, you cannot go stable to the other stage. Sometimes you go and get back. It's only grasping, but not going stable to the next stage. So we have 5 stages of human needs. The first stage is the first level or stage is physiological or basic needs or primary needs. Second one, need for security, safety. Third one is the need for love and belongingness. Fourth one, need for esteem, especially self-esteem. And the last level in the in Maslow hierarchy of needs, we can find a very, very profound and deep level of needs, so-called self-actualization, which is related to your not self-assessment, it is related to your uh, self-fulfillment. So at first, you should meet your basic needs. It is something like your instincts, something like your drives, not about your arousal. It is only about the hunger, thirst, and food, water, hunger, thirst, sex, and other things. Safety needs after that, by meeting your basic needs, you are alive. By meeting the need for safety and security, you will stay alive, you will maintain alive. So the need for a safe, secure environment. Some aspects of social life included here, yes. The third part, after you know that I am alive and I can stay alive, I can be survive. After that, you say that I need someone else to have communicated with as a love partner, or I need to have some social connection, social communication with other people. It is the belongingness. The technical difference between love and belongingness is about intimate relationship, sexual intimate relationship. When you have some sense of belongingness to someone or something, there is no approaches of sexual intimate behavior between both of you. But when you say that I am in a love partnership, it calls that yes, in the future or no, sometimes just now, you have some types of sexual desire to each other. It is the technical difference. It's a very, very specific difference. There is no need for the students of management or leadership to know about the differences between the love and belongingness. But because it is a psychology course, I want you to know about the details. After that, so they need to obtain and give affection and to be a contributing member of a group or society. So, affection, emotion, kindness, love, and membership. The starting point of this need is from our adolescence. The major question of adolescence is that who am I? This is the major question of adolescence. Who am I? Because of that, uh, you want to be in a group. You want to be a member of a group. Sometimes some positive groups, for example, sport groups, sport clubs, scientific groups, scientific clubs, and if you don't have any good chance to find these positive groups, you go, for example, for negative groups like gangsters, gang groups, juvenile delinquency, and different uh, groups that you can, different activities or group that you can do or you can join only for having a sense of membership. After that, again, you come to yourself and ask yourself that I'm a real worthy man or woman. It is about the assessment of your self-worthiness, worth from the approach of yourself. It is about the self-esteem. Self-esteem is the judgment by yourself about the value of you, not because of your success in your life, not because of your academic grades or academic level, not because of your social prestige. Without all of these items, how much and how valuable you consider you are. It is your self-esteem, which is profoundly rooted in your family, especially in your adolescence. And self-actualization, also you see self-worth and competence, valuing your competence is the categorization of self-esteem. Maslow says, I think in the book of Personality and Motivation, or Motivation and Personality, Maslow says only 3 to 5% of general population can reach the 5 level, the level of self-actualization, a state of self-fulfillment in which people realize their highest potential, each in his or her own unique way. Because of that, many people cannot reach to this level. Why? Because in this level, you will be unique. Yes, why not? But also you will be alone. And also you will be only on your own way, on your own foot to pass your way to your best version of yourself. It is something, a slogan in the coaching, we say, let your next version be your best version. For finding your best version, for being on your best version, at first you should find something in yourself for fulfillment, for growing. Again, you see here the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's hierarchy show how our motivation progresses up the pyramid from the broadest, most fundamental biological needs to higher order ones. And because it is a hierarchy, only after meeting the basic lower order needs can a person consider fulfilling higher order needs, such as the needs for love and sense of belonging, esteem, and self actualization. In one of the categories, some scientists in management and leadership, in psychology, they say that some needs are from the growth needs and some needs are from the survival needs, being needs, the needs that you should meet them only for your keeping your survival. It is basic needs and also security needs. If you cannot have a good, secure, and safe environment, you cannot be alive. You will die. You will be killed. Because of this logic behind this conceptualization, we say they are existence needs or being needs or survival needs, basic needs and needs for security. After that, we can enter the levels of growth needs, something more than only being alive. It is about the needs for love and belonging, need for self-esteem, and need for self-actualization. The final part of the approaches to motivation is about human needs in terms of psychological well-being. Three basic needs: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. We are talking about self determination theory. We are talking about psychological well being, something more than your hunger something more than your sex, something more than your security, something more than your relationship, something more than your even self-esteem and evaluation of yourself. We are talking about your well-being, a global and total and holistic concept of being, well-being, psychological well-being. Also, in some aspects, in some fields of psychology, it is called happiness. Sometimes subjective well-being or psychological well-being, sometimes it is called happiness. So happiness or psychological well-being or subjective well-being has three components: competence, autonomy, and relatedness. The need to produce desired outcomes, the need to produce desired outcome is your competence. So we have two major at first: need to produce. What type of production? Your desired outcomes. The perception that we have control over our own lives, it is called autonomy. It is something like the concept of self-efficacy, coined by Bandura. Bandura coined two major concepts in psychology. One of them is social learning or observational learning, and the second one is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a very important concept in psychology and one of the major components of creating and shaping and forming your self. And relatedness, the need to be involved in close, warm relationship with others. Relatedness in the theory of self-determination theory, in this theory, relatedness is something like intimacy, warm, close, trustable relationship with others. In some approaches to love, we can find the elements of intimacy as one of the basic components of love. In a Sternberg theory of love, so-called triangle of love or triad of love, triad or triangle of love by Sternberg, Robert Sternberg, based on his research, he find three components of love: passion, intimacy, and commitment. Passion is about the sexual desire, attractiveness, and other things. If you are in a love relationship with other one, you should have a good passion, good sexual desire. And intimacy is something like it: a close, warm, trustable about the secrets of your life with your partner. It is your love partner. It is the second part. And the third part, which is commitment, indicates the social commitment, indicates the social, not isolation, but social focus of your love only on your love partner. For example, betrayal or unfaithfulness, these are the opposite meanings of commitment. So, relatedness in self determination theory is something like intimacy in triangle of love or love triad theory of Sternberg. These three psychological needs are innate and universal. When you say something is innate, it means all human beings have it. All of it. It is innate. It is based on the human nature. You cannot find a healthy human being, for example, with 48 chromosomes. The innate of human being is 46 chromosomes. You cannot find a healthy human being with three hands. All human beings, healthy human beings, yes, we have some exceptional cases in disorders with three hands. Why not? But it is not ordinary. It is not the nature of human being. It is exceptional. It is disorder, out of the order. It is not on the order of being a human being. Disorder. Regularly, yes, we have two hands. When you say something is innate, it is mean the roots of this quality is in his or her nature and universal, also global, across cultures, and they are essential as basic biological needs. After 9/11 in 2001, after 9/11, the discussion about the cultural psychology became so important in the field of psychological research, especially in North America. Why? Because as one of the safest countries in the world, America, as one of the safest countries in the world, America experienced a very, very huge, unpredictable, catastrophic attack in the center of money in the world, New York, in the center of money, center of trade, and with one of the icons of business in the world, World Trade Center, World Trade Center buildings. After that, cultural discussion in terrorism psychology, in anger psychology, in minority psychology, in immigration psychology, all these are the different approaches to culture-based differences between human beings. As human beings, yes, we are the same. But in reality, my body is not so different from your body. But my mindset can be completely different because of the culture, because of the nationality, because of the family, because of my relationship, because of my, for example, adolescence course and other parts. After 9/11, especially in North America and America, especially in the United States of America, many psychologists had a good force to study the cultural based differences between minorities, between different people, especially in a country like America, like Australia, like Canada, which is basically under immigration. We don't have any person so-called Native American. Native American or Indian American. Go and find it. Everybody is immigrant here. The old-fashioned immigrant here are white Americans. The next fashion, for example, African American, Asian American, Caucasian American, and this is the country of immigration. Australia is the country of immigration. Canada is the country of immigration. Because of that, cultural psychology is very important. You are working with different cultures. Some of my friends as psychotherapists, for example, they are here for 40 years, for decades. One of them say to me that when you are Farsi in my native language, Farsi, at first I translate it to English language and I find my answer in English language and again translate to Farsi language. But after 40 years, after 4 decades, and thinking in an English-based mindset, they are always visiting Iranian, for example, clients because of culture. It's not about the language. Also, the language is one of the greatest components of culture, I know. But because of the culture, because of the poetry, because of the literature, because of the food, because of the cities, because of the culture. You see here, Hispanic culture, Korean culture, very near cultures, very closest culture. For example, Chinese culture, Korean culture, and Japanese culture, and Vietnamese culture. You see that different, but they are very near. All are Oriental cultures. But we can find very, very important differentiative differences between these very near culture. Because of that, culture is very important, especially in the country with a high diversity of cultures. You see here major approaches to motivation, instinct. People and animals are born with pre-programmed sets of behaviors essential to their survival, and drive reduction. When some basic biological requirement is lacking, a drive is produced. Lacking and biology is very important words in definition of drive reduction, failure approaches to motivation, and arousal approaches to motivation. People seek an optimal level of stimulation If the level of stimulation is too high, they act to reduce it. If it's too low, they act to increase it. If we want to go a balanced state between our different needs to be activated. An incentive, external reward, direct and energized behavior. The major definition of motivation is direction and energizing. And cognitive approaches set thoughts, belief, expectation, and goals direct motivation. It is very, very popular, very normal in coaching, success coaching, to find, for example, goal setting and going to them. And hierarchy of needs from a hierarchy before higher order needs are met, lower order needs must be fulfilled. The major question here is how can we apply and use of the motivational approaches and different approaches to creating motivation in human beings as the best approach, as the most applicable approach, which provides the fullest account of motivation. Actually, many of the approaches are complementary rather than contradictory. It is very important point that you should consider in your mind, in your activating, in your being in the future as a leader or manager, that these approaches are complementary, not contradictory. When you say contradictory, it is something in opposition or state of other things. It is complementary. You should consider all of them from the basic parts, for example, instinctual approaches, to the highest part, which are need-based approaches to motivation. In fact, employing more than one approach can help us understand motivation in a particular instance. Applying multiple approaches to motivation in a given situation provides a broader understanding that we might obtain by employing only one single approach. It needs a comprehensive approach, a comprehensive interpretation of human beings' motivation. So if you want to have a good comprehensive approach to motivation, you should consider all of the approaches to motivation: instinct, driven, arousal, cognitive, need-based, and also incentive. We have some study alert here. Review the distinction between the differences, different explanation for motivation, instinct, drive, reduction, arousal, incentive, cognitive, and Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A key point: eating and hunger are influenced by the biological and social factors. We will talk about it, and sexual orientation. Human needs and motivation. The motivation behind hunger. We are talking about two major parts of motivation: motivation for hunger and motivation in sexual behavior. We talk about the sexual behavior and exploratory behavior as the reaction to the other instincts. They were not instinctual. Your sexual behavior is not instinctual. Your exploratory behavior is not instinctual. It is a response, it's a reaction to other parts. For example, your sexual behavior is a response to your motivation to reproduce. And obesity, body weight that is more than 20% above the average weight for a person of particular height, is called obese, or the state is obesity. We have an index here, so-called body mass index, or BMI, with different levels. I think the minimum level, the minimum grade is 18, and the highest level is 35, based on a ratio of weight to height. BMI greater than 30 considered obese. BMI between 25 and 30 are overweight. And normal weight is between, I think, 22 and 25. You can find the exact numbers in the internet. But for the basic assessment of the obesity in you, nutritionists and dietitians consider your BMI, body mass index. The motivation behind hunger. We have a component here, we have a phrase here, so-called weight set point, particular level of weight that the body strives to maintain, which in turn regulates food intake. It is something like homeostasis, if you can remember it. Homeostasis was the stable state in your body that it is very good for maintaining your survival. And homeostasis, what about your chemicals in your body? What was the tools to create it of homeostasis? Your instincts and your drives, especially your drives. We said that homeostasis underlies the drive. The drives what lack of need of biological lack of biological needs that create drive based on the homeostasis. One of the tools, one of the other interpretation, expanded interpretation of homeostasis is weight set point. The set point, the quality point, the good point, the balance point where your weight is weight set point. Particular level of weight that the body strives to maintain, which in turn regulates food intake. Based on your metabolism and weight set point, we have homeostasis, and after that we have wet set point, and after that we have metabolism. The hypothalamus that calls for either greater or less food intake acts as a kind of internal weight thermostat. Thermostat also, it is about the thermal. When you say thermostat, you cannot say it is something like a weight thermostat. Thermostat, basically, it is an apparatus, it is a tools for creating some stability in the temperature. It is thermostat. But now everything works based on feedback loop to maintain something at a predefined level, predefined point. At a set point, it is called thermostat. So hypothalamus in your brain works as a weight thermostat. What is the tools? What is the methodology? Well, in what method can a hypothalamus work to create an homeostasis about your weight by food intake? Metabolism, it is genetic factors determine the weight set point, genetic factors. At this point, people seem destined through heredity to have a particular metabolism. What is metabolism? The rate at which food is converted to energy and expanded by the body. The rate at which, it is about, we are talking about the rate. We are not talking about the amount. We are talking about the rate at which food is converted to energy and expanded by the body. People with a high metabolic rate can eat virtually as much as they want without gaining weight. Some people, you see that they eat many foods, a lot of foods, but not gaining a higher, very much weight. They're always slim, high metabolic rate. On the other side, in the oppositional side, you see people like me, for example. We don't know very, very high amount of food, but gaining weight, gaining weight. It is about the metabolic rate, the rate at which food is converted to energy and expanded by the body. What part is this converted to energy? What part expanded to body? For example, your something like your mass of fats in your body. And whereas other with low metabolism may eat literally half as much as yet again weight readily. And what are the social factors in motivation behind hunger? One factor was biological factor about the weight set point, about the metabolic rate, and other things. We are talking about derived reduction theory. When you are talking about metabolic rate or weight set point, you are talking about derived reduction theory. Other parts is internal biological factors don't fully explain our eating behavior, especially in some countries like America, that you are bombardment with the advertisement about the food, and also food is not so expensive. You can eat many, many junky foods here in America. So social factors are more important than metabolic rate or weight set points or drive reduction approaches to motivation. It is about the social factors, which is include in cognitive cognitive approaches to motivation and incentives approaches, and sometimes need-based approaches. Sociocultural influences, along with biology, play an important role in what, when, what, and how much we eat. For example, in when, because of daily schedule, you are employee of a store and you have a specific time for eating your dinner. It says it is not important that you are hungry or not. It is your dinner time. It is your lunch time. Go or not go. It is when. What? Particular sociocultural food preference over others. It is based on your culture, based on your society, based on your social level, economic status, and how much. The same daily amount of food. You cannot regard your needs for food because of your daily work, daily activity. The same amount of food, you have a habitual behavior for eating the food at the same level, regardless of how much do you need to energy, how much do you need to food intake. So sociocultural aspect says when I should eat, what I should eat, and how much I should eat. We are facing some two basic and very very hazardous sometimes. These are dying illnesses. So anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. Nervosa has been something to your brain, something related to your nervous system. Anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, especially anorexia nervosa. A severe eating disorder. You know that we have uh, a specific categorization of mental disorders, so-called eating disorders. We have a specific mental disorder, so-called eating disorder. Eating disorder is not a physiological disorder, it's a mental disorder. A severe eating disorder, people may refuse to eat while denying that their behavior and appearance, which can become skeleton-like, are unusual. Honestly, you can see it in the picture. Honestly, despite looking a skeleton like others, people with the weight disorder anorexia nervosa see themselves as overweight. I have some cases, I have seen some cases in the years of working in hospital as a psychologist and also a psychotherapist. Some, I think about 4 cases of anorexia, severe anorexia nervosa. It is very severe. When they come for hospitalization, also they cannot come by themselves. They will bring other people, significant others, mother, father, spouses, sibling, bring them to hospital for hospitalization because they need some professional physiological and mental help. It is not about for going to home and doing and working on yourself. Mainly affects female between 12 and 40, but can affect men and women of any age, mainly. Typically a stable background and can happen when serious dieting gets out of control. And about 10% of people with anorexia starve themselves to death. 10% of people with anorexia nervosa will die because of their illness. It is very, very, very high rate. Only 2% of people with coronavirus, at the worst scenario, only 2% of people with coronavirus will die. Near 10% of people with anorexia nervosa starve themselves to death. Also, some professional helping like hospitalization and mental works we can offer them for solving their problems, for treatment. It is a very, very hard disorder to uh, have a good therapy and psychotherapy and physiological treatments for them. You can see here fMRI in 2 parts in a brain of anorexic. and the brain of people with anorexia and in healthy brain. Also, we cannot consider any brain as a healthy brain, but when we say healthy brain, it indicates that in this picture, in this fMRI, you can see the brain of somebody without anorexia nervosa. Also, he or she can have other mental or physiological or neurological disorders. To help understand the causes of anorexia, participants in a study, either patients with anorexia or healthy individuals, viewed images of different foods to examine their cognitive processes. We show them different foods. And with fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, we look at their brain and their reaction of their brain to facing with different foods. Comparison of fMRI scans, a patient with anorexia left column and healthy person right column showed significant differences in their reactions to the food stimuli. The differences suggest that patients with anorexia differ from non-anorexics in terms of their attention to food stimuli, which in turn may be related to restrictions in the eating behavior of the anorexics. So you see some differences in the brain reactions to the foods and to the interpretation, to the beliefs, to the thought about the foods. Because of that, one of the greatest and also new approaches to analyzing the motivation is about the cognitive approaches to motivation. It's very important to know what beliefs, what mindset, what interpretations, what culture based, religion based, national based, even sometimes geographical based biases about the foods. It's very important. And after that, you can find some severe problems like anorexia nervosa or bulimia nervosa in people with different brain reaction to foods. The other one, the other severe disorder as an eating disorder is bulimia disorder, bulimia nervosa disorder in which people binge a large quantity of food followed by efforts to purge the food by vomiting or other means, such as taking laxatives. You know, we use the word binge in different parts of our life. For example, binge eating, binge drinking. Binge drinking is something that someone that drinks alcohol, for example, once a week, not every night, once a week, once a month. But in that single session to drink alcohol, he drinks and drinks and drinks and drinks until the time she go, for example, to hospital or she has a very bad health situation. It is binge drinking, not related to the duration, not related to the times, not related to the uh, number of sessions for drinking alcohol. It is about the quantity of alcohol, about the amount of alcohol he or she will drink in one single session. Also, something like binge eating in bulimia. And the major criteria for diagnosing bulimia is about using laxatives, laxative pills, for example, or more popular is action or have something like, for example, gag reflex for vomiting. It is the major criteria that we can say, yes, he or she has bulimia nervosa. Only binge eating is not the indicator, a criteria, diagnostic criteria for diagnosis of bulimia nervosa. At least he or she should have one of these symptoms, signs. One, vomiting, intentional vomiting by gag reflex, and two, using laxative pills. Causes of eating disorder generally: biological chemical imbalance in hypothalamus or pituitary gland, differences in how brain processes info about food, and social roots of uh, bulimia nervosa or anorexia nervosa. Society values slenderness and obesity is undesirable. Also, it is not about the Society of America. Overly demanding parents or other family problems. We have a syndrome here, so-called Barbie syndrome. Barbie syndrome is a syndrome, that says when you are so sexy, when you are so attractive, when you are so socially acceptable, you have a socially acceptable body shape, when you are somebody like a Barbie doll. It is Barbie syndrome. And many people have some mind difficulties, mind problems, and about their, not about their body, about their body image. It's not a problem of body, it's a problem of body image, especially in anorexia nervosa. You saw that we say, other people say, oof, you are not slim, you are a skeleton like, your body is a skeleton like. But they say, no, I am overweight. It's a major criteria for diagnosing of anorexia nervosa, that there's a great difference between the body shape and body image. Body shape is something that I, as an external person, can see in you, can see your body shape and say, yes, it is normal, it is abnormal, it is fit or it is not fit. But your body shape is something different from your body image. The problem is in your body image. Also, honestly, we know many problems in psychology is related to your body, in your mental image. The next chapter, the next part that we want to talk about, it is about sexual motivation. The biology of sexual motivation, animal behavior, is affected by the presence of certain hormones in the blood. Moreover, female animals are receptive to sexual advances only during certain relatively limited periods of the year. Also, in all animals, we know we have, especially in females, we have some season based patterns of reproduction, season based patterns of sexual behavior, especially when they want to have some types of mating with female with male, only with a specific goal of reproduction. And genitals, the male and female sex organs are called genitals. Estrogen and progesterone, female sex hormones produced by the ovaries, greatest production during ovulation when an egg is released from the ovaries. And androgen is the male sex hormone secreted by the testes, which is the most important. Androgen is testosterone. You see the anatomy, the biology of sexual motivation, and the sexual system of male and female. You see, for example, in male, in female, you say ovary, uterus, bladder, pubic bone, and urethra and clitoris, and anus and vagina and cervix. It is the different parts of sexual system of female. And also in male, you see bladder, vas deferens, pubic bone, urethra, penis, glands, scrotum, testis, anus, ejaculatory duct, prostate, seminal vesicles, and large intestine. You see some major differences in the biology and anatomy of sexual system in males and females. But as psychology, we should know about the sexual motivation. It is not the class of biology, class of course of biology, or course of anatomy. You want to know about the sexual motivation when you are talking and you are thinking about the approaches to motivation. Masturbation or solitary sex is a sexual behavior, sexual self stimulation. Men masturbate considerably more of than women, also based on the facts on your book. Although there are differences in frequency according to age. Age is very important to the uh, occurrence and recurrency of masturbative behaviors. Male masturbation is most common in the early teens and then declines, whereas females both begin and reach a maximum frequency later. You see many types of, many rates of, different rates of masturbation, especially in teenagers, in male teenagers. But sometimes after ending, especially in the young adults, you see a little much rates in female than male. And heterosexuality is sexual attraction and behavior directed to other sex. Heterosexuality and homosexuality, it is about your sexual orientation. It is not about your sexual identity. When somebody is heterosex, regularly people have are heterosex. The other people from the other sex is so attractive for them. Men for women, women for men. It is heterosexuality. When you are homosexual or your attraction, your direction, your sexual direction is homosexuality, it means that for sexual behavior, not for sexual identity, not for your gender identity, your sexual behavior direction is to the same sex, men with men and women with women, gays and lesbian. That GLBTQ, it is the movement, also scientific, science-based movement all around the world, especially in America, especially in California. GLBTQ is a movement about the providing correct information to general population about the, for example, differences between a transgender or transsex of with, for example, homosexuals. It is something completely different. People often believe that the first time they have sexual intercourse, they have achieved one of life's major milestones. Many people says that yes, my first sexual intercourse, my first sexual experience was one of the greatest milestones. After that, I am not the same person that I was before that. Also, your first sexual experiences is the cutoff point, not about your puberty, about your experiences in life. And sometimes people say and think that they have gone out of their childhood, of their adolescence, and welcome to the adulthood world. Something like smoking cigarettes, something like, for example, drinking alcohol. Also, I know that sexual experience is not at the grade of smoking cigarette or drinking alcohol for the first times. But many adolescents think that these are the signs of entering to the adulthood world. However, heterosexuality, sexual attraction and behavior directed to other sex, consists for more than male-female intercourse, far more than female. And double standards, they view that premarital sex, sex before marriage, is a permissible for males but not for females. It is very, very popular in the countries, in the developing countries, and it is not related to the industry, related to the industrial development. It is related to the culture. Many countries, for example, in North Europe, many countries doesn't have any type of double standard. They don't think in Sweden, in Denmark, in Norway, in Finland, they don't think that yes, it is good for a female to be a virgin before marriage, and it is not good, or it is allowed for males to be not virgin before marriage. They think yes, sex is sex, love is love. Whenever you find it so good for you, do it. Why not? In some parts of America, like California, it's a middle and average state. Some people say no, it is good to be virgin before marriage, legal marriage. Some people say no, it is not important. Whenever, wherever. Psychological based approaches says it is not important about the culture. You should consider your culture because of guilt feeling, because of uh, sense of to be not a good boy or a good daughter or a good girl. It is the psychological approach. It is not about the biological approach. In psychology, we consider your reactions to your sexual behavior. If you are a religious boy or religious girl, and if you ask me, how do you think about the value of masturbation? I don't answer you, it is good or it is not good. I ask you, what about your, for example, religious beliefs? If you believe, for example, in some religions like Christianity or Islam, or even in Jewish, they said that masturbation is something that make you very, very far from God. It is not good. If you have some beliefs, it is not important that this belief is correct or not correct. You go to, for example, Vatican and ask some religious leaders that is it correct or not correct. It is not my proficiency. But I know if you do something and you feel guilt about your action, it is not good. It is not healthy for your mind, for yourself, for your soul, for your mental status. I am talking about the guilt feeling, not about the biological or psychological approach to masturbation, for example, or homosexuality, or, for example, double standard and to be virgin um, until your marital states, until your marriage. So, culture, religion, family beliefs are very important. And what about the freedom? In the aspect of freedom, you can do everything you want to do when you can accept the responsibility. In the aspect, in the side of freedom, the only matter is accountability and responsibility. You can do everything in your life if you can accept its responsibility, accountability. It is at the aspect, at the side of discussion about freedom. And extramarital sex is something opposite of double standard. Double standard says that you should not have any type of sex before marriage. Extramarital sex says you can have or you have some types of sexual behaviors in somebody who is not your spouse, who is not your husband, who is not your wife. It is extramarital sex, not marital sex. Sexual activity between a married person and someone who is not his or her spouse. And sexual orientation, we talk about it. Homosexuals, those who are sexually attracted to members of their own sex. Many prefer terms gay and lesbian. And bisexual in LGB. L is for lesbians, G for gays, and B is for bisexuals. Those who are sexually attracted to people of the same sex and other sex, they can have only sex with women, and when they are bisexuals. Kinsey, one of the first scientists who worked on sex as a science, which is called sexology. Kinsey considered sexual orientation along a continuum from exclusively homosexual to exclusively heterosexual, from two extremes. But scientifically and naturally and biologically and physiologically and psychologically, all of us have two dimension. I have some female dimension in myself. Or for example, if you are a female, you have some traits of male dimension in yourself. We are talking about the dominancy. If I am a man and my sexual dominant direction is to have sex with another woman, yes, I am heterosex. If you are a woman and you have some dominant direction to have sex with another woman, you are same sex, you are homosexual. So it is not about to be good or to be bad. We are talking about the continuum. And one side is extremely homosexuality, and the other side, other extreme is extremely heterosexuality. Determinants of sexual orientation: biological, genetic, hormones, brain structures, and parenting is very important also in homosexuality and heterosexuality. It is not approved that parenting style has a very great impact on your sexual orientation. Research does not support the idea that sexual orientation is brought about by child rearing practices or family dynamics, only about the orientation. Most likely a combination of biology and environment, nature versus nurture. And although people often view homosexuality and heterosexuality as two completely distinct sexual, the issue is not that simple. It is not completely separate, distinct. It is a continuum and continuous. Sexual motivation, again, transsexuals, people who believe they were born with the body of other gender, When you are transsexual, you have some problem with your gender identity. It is not about your sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is about your sexual behavior. I want to be a man, but have some sexual orientation, for example, with another man. I am homosexual. But if I am bodily, physiologically a man, and I think, sorry, I don't have any feeling of to be a man. I feel to be a woman with other sex, other gender body. Okay, I am transsexual. I should trans my sexuality, my gender. These are two different, completely different things. Transgenderism includes transsexuals, transvestites, dress in clothing of other gender, or it is called the popular word is CD, yes, cross-dressing, and others who believe traditional male-female gender classification don't adequately describe them. And you see here sexual orientation in a therapy session. Frankly, I have repressed my sexuality so I have actually forgotten what my orientation is. It is it's a joke about the repression of sexuality. Basically, basically, all types of repression, all types of repression, sexual repression, talent repression, the things that your society wants you to be repressed because these are not socially acceptable. All types of repression, psychological repression, will end to psychological problems. And the last one, it is need for achievement. We have thematic apperception test, TAT. It is very important for measuring achievement motivation. We talk about you find secondary achievement was secondary uh, incentive, secondary drive. Sorry, secondary drive was something like achievement because of your previous experience, your previous actions in your life, you have learned them, not only achieved them. A stable learned characteristic in which a person obtains satisfaction by striving for and attaining a level of excellence. In need for achievement, we are talking about level of excellence. We are talking about striving for attaining a level of excellence. There is a good test here as a psychometric, as a questionnaire, as an inquiry for assessing about your achievement level, achievement, desirable achievement level. It is a thematic apperception test or TAT. Series of, I have brought for you some pictures from the test. Series of ambiguous pictures about which a person is asked to write a story. The examiner tells participants to write a story that describes what is happening in that picture, who the people are, what led to the situation, what people are thinking or wanting, and what will happen next. Researchers then use a standard scoring system to determine the amount of achievement imagery in people's stories. Also, different pictures you can find in need for achievement test, thematic perception test, and need for affiliation, striving for friendship. It is something else, something different for need for achievement. Few of us choose to lead our lives as hermits. Why? Need for affiliation and interest in establishing and maintaining relationship with other people. In affiliation, we are talking about the meaningful relationship with others, a stable, meaningful relationship with others. If you have some relationship with other people, it's not affiliation. At first, it should be meaningful, and after that, it should be consistent, persistent, stable, meaningful relationship with others. People who have higher affiliation needs, a particularly sensitive relationship with others. They change their attachment to dependence. They are not attached to other people, they are dependent to other people because of their hypersensitivity to their relationship. They desire to be with their friends more of the time and alone less often compared with people who are lower in need for affiliation. And the third prior secondary drive is need for power. These are the needs which are not based on your primary or instinctual drive based or biological or need for survival. These are the need for growth, need for achievement, need for affiliation, need for power, striving for impact on others. What is the major word in need for power? It is impact on others. A tendency to seek impact, control, or influence over others, and to be seen as powerful individuals. People with strong needs for power. One, are more apt to belong to organization and seek office than are those low in need for power. They need the organization. They need the office. They are boss. Tend to work in professions in which their power needs may be fulfilled. And third one, seek to display the trapping of power. The last and very short discussion in this session is about the emotions. Also, emotions is very important in modern psychology and also in traditional psychology. But in modern psychology, it is very, very important to know about the emotions. You see emotions, feelings that generally have both physiological and cognitive elements and that influence behavior. Emotions are difficult to define or place. Even though it is a happy day, many people cry at wedding. It is called um, ambivalence. Ambivalence is having and experiencing two apparently different emotions. For example, love and hate, happiness and crying. In one single situation, it is ambivalence. And the range of emotion labeling our feelings, we have positive emotions and negative emotions. Positive emotions, something like joy or love, and negative emotion like anger, sadness, and fear. For example, love is fondness and infatuation, and joy, bliss, contentment, pride. One challenge for psychologists has been to sort through this list to identify the most important fundamental emotions. One approach to organize emotion is to use a hierarchy which divide emotion into increasingly narrow subcategories. Emotions, we have positive emotions and negative emotions. The major force in studying about emotions, the basic major force, was a very famous, very, very famous psychologist, so called Paul Ekman. Paul Ekman worked on different basic emotions. Basic emotions are the emotions that you can find in different cultures with the same expressions, especially facial expressions in other cultures. It is cross cultural emotions. These are the basic emotions. In one categorization, we can find five basic emotions. In other categorization, we can find six emotions, six basic emotions. In a very, very interesting uh, animation, Oscar winner animation, so called Inside Out. Inside Out, I think it is 2015, Oscar winner of 2015. Inside Out, that the assistant for a screenplay were two psychologists, two professors of psychologists. You can find in a very, very interesting, very attractive animation, you can find five basic emotions. And other categorization, it is about six basic emotions. And in a series, in 3 seasons, in a series with the name of Lie to Me, you can find the basic informations about the facts. Facts is facial expression coding system. Facts, facial expression coding system. It is facts, and you can find it the different aspects of facial expressions and coding system. What are the signs and symptoms of different emotions in your facial expressions? The roots of theory of emotions, James Long theory. Do gut reactions equal emotions? Gut reactions are the in psychology, in modern psychology, we say your stomach is your second brain, your digestion system is your second nervous system. Emotions are experienced as a reaction to bodily events occurring as a result of an external situation. Bodily changes cause feelings of emotion. I feel sad because I am crying. So, in this approach, which is the very fundamental and old fashioned theory about the emotion, it says at first it is your body. You don't cry because you are sad. You are sad because you are crying. It says at first we have gut reactions, we have bodily reaction, and after that we have some feelings about that bodily reaction. So those feelings are called emotions. The second one is common word theory, physiological reactions as the result of emotion. It is on the other parts. At first, we say we experience emotions because of our body. In the second theory, it says physiological reactions is because of your emotions. Both physiological arousal and emotional experience are produced at the same time, but the same nervous stimulus. Schachter-Singer theory, emotions as labels. It says emotions are determined jointly by a non-specific kind of physiological arousal and its interpretation, which is based on environmental cues. And you see here different approaches to uh, three models of emotions. And finally, contemporary perspective says that specific patterns of biological arousal, such as activating different parts of the brain, seem to be associated with individual emotions. We consider the discussion of emotions very shortly in this session. Why? Because if you want to know about the emotions, you should consider different interdisciplinary aspects, not only managerial or humanistic or leadership aspects to emotion, not only, for example, psychological aspects. Emotion is a multidimensional and multidisciplinary topic for discussing about it. So highly recommended for all students of management, leadership, psychology, and everybody who wants to work with people should know about the emotional cues in his or her culture. It is culture based differences, it has culture based differences, very important. And also some knowledge about the main different emotions, main six different emotions you see here. Do people in all cultures express it similarly? Six primary emotions: happiness, anger, sadness, it is happiness, the first one, anger, the second one, third one's, and disgust and fear. Surprise, here is surprise, it is disgust, and it is fear. Expressed universally by members of human race, regardless of where individuals have been raised and what learning experiences they have had. These are the basic human experience, basic human emotions. Please read about the emotions, especially emotional signs and symptoms at the workplace. It is very important to know it. And as a very general course for general psychology, it is enough, but there is no ending for the discussion and for assessment and evaluation of emotion. Thanks for the time you consider for watching this video, and I wish to see you again for the next topic and next discussion. Bye.